What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Guest Player Podcast. We are back picking week 2 of all the NFL games. It was such a crazy week last week. And yeah, I am joined today again by Derek. How are you doing this morning, Derek?
Good, how you doing?
Doing great. But yeah, it was such a crazy week last week. I think I got a lot of takes right, but there were some upsets scattered in, so hopefully we do a little bit better this week. Taking a quick look at our records, on the week, we saw Ethan, his picks at the end. He only got 6 out of 16 right, giving him a 6-10 record on the year. Well, me and Derek, we both had different picks, but came out with the same record as we both got 10 out of 16 right. So let's see who will break the tie this week. At the end, we'll be playing NFL Guess the Players picks again, too. So stay tuned for that. A couple plugs before we start. Make sure you are subscribed to my YouTube channel if you're on YouTube. If you're listening on Spotify, make sure to hit that follow button. Give me a 5-star. Do whatever, share with your friends. And yeah, we want this podcast to be a big deal. And we're really happy to do it for y'all. So thank you if you're subscribed or followed. Make sure you're following all of our Guest the Player accounts, whether it's me at MLB Guest the Player, whether it's Derek at NHL underscore Guest the Player, or Ethan, our NFL guy, NFL Guest the Player. Also, it's not too late to join in on our action with our Yahoo Pickem League. You can make the picks with us, compete against us. That group ID is 44828. The password is GTP 2026 in all caps. Now be on Yahoo. But yeah, we have a lot of picks to get through. So let's just get started with that. Starting with the Thursday night football game, we got the Washington Commanders taking on the Green Bay Packers. Derek, what are your thoughts on this game?
Well, as we saw in week one, both teams came out with a win. Commanders beating the Giants, Packers beating the Lions. But I think the Commanders will win week one because if you look at it here, they had more rush yards against the Giants. And surprisingly, Krosky Moret had 82 yards over the starter Eckler. So that's something to look out for. And on top of that, they had more passing yards too to Debo. So I honestly think compared to that to 66 rush yards and 68 receiving yards by Dalbs and Jacobs, I honestly think that Washington could win week two.
Yeah, do you see it being a close game? You see it being a decisive win for the Commanders, or do you think it'll be a close one?
I think it'll be a close one because they're playing in Green Bay, if I remember correctly. So it should be a very good game, in my opinion.
Yeah, this one's a tough matchup to predict. For a Thursday night football game, it's looking pretty good. Obviously, the Commanders going to the NFC Championship last year, and the Green Bay Packers with the addition of Micah Parsons and their expectations for this year. Um, Both of these teams played really great last week. The Commanders taking care of the Giants and the Packers, making the Lions look not as strong as last year. The Packers defense looks really good out there. Jared Goff did not have a great game last week. Lions in whole did not look that good. And while I do think the Commanders are a great team still, like I'm not going to discredit them for beating the Giants because they did what they had to do. I feel like this Packers team is just really strong as they made the Lions just not look anywhere near how they did last year. It wasn't a close game for them, and I think they're going to continue that. I think this will be a closer game than the Lions game, but I mean, everything's looking really good for the Packers, and especially if this game at Lambeau, it's going to be a lot harder for the Commanders to come in there and win. So I'm going to disagree with you, and I'm going to roll with the Packers for this one. Now we got the Sunday morning slate, starting with the Jacksonville Jaguars versus the Cincinnati Bengals. What are your thoughts on this game?
I think I'm going to go with the popularity pick on this one. I'm going to go with the Bengals. They're in Cincinnati. Both teams won week one. Cincinnati did not really show up that well. They had no player on the team had more than 50 receptions or receiving or rushing yards. So that's a little bit of a concern for me, especially against the Browns. But being that it's an in division matchup, and then the Jaguars facing the Carolina Panthers, putting up 143 rush yards with ETN and 59 with Strange. I think because he played a more of a worse defense, I think that the Bengals will show up week 2 and bounce back. So give me the Bengals week 2.
All right. This one's a little interesting. The Jaguars, while they played the Panthers, they looked really good out there. Trevor Lawrence um, is looking pretty comfortable in Lincoln Cohn's offense. You saw Travis Hunter get some action. You saw um, Travis Etienne really take command of that backfield. You saw these pieces on the Jaguars really start to come to fruition, and they looked good against a possible weak Panthers team. While the Bengals, they had their struggles against the Browns. People thought that this was going to be a loss for them because they have a horrible record in week 1, but they were able to pull out with a victory here. And this is honestly going to be a pretty close game. I think that this one might be more of an offensive shootout, but I will take the Bengals here. I think that they will figure it out, and as it usually goes for them, they just heat up as the season goes on. And I think this Bengals offense would take a huge step up against the Jaguars here. But I do think the Jaguars are going to be putting up a great game again. I think ETN, now that Bigsby's gone, he's going to continue to take that backfield. Fantasy owners of ETN are going to love that. I think that Brian Thomas will be utilized more. And yeah, I think this will be a great game, sneaky great game. But I definitely have the Bengals going to win this game. All right, next up, we got the New York Giants versus the Cowboys. What are we thinking about your Giants?
Well, after week 1, both teams took a loss. The Giants defense showed like it was transparent against the Commanders, although they did get to Jaden Daniels a couple times. But also, the Cowboys had a interesting lead against the Eagles and ended up blowing it. So for me, I'm taking the Cowboys in this game, especially being in Dallas. I mean, you had CeeDee Lamb put up 110 yards, Dak Prescott 188 yards, but the Giants, I'm sorry, you couldn't. Russell Wilson had 168 yards, showing up like he did with the Seahawks. But then you have all these other guys like Malik Neighbors and Wan'Dale Robinson look great, but our defense again looks transparent. And without a defense, we can't go. Not even being able to score a touchdown. So I have the Cowboys winning this, and it is probably not going to be close.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to take the Cowboys too. They actually looked really solid against the Eagles, and arguably the only reason why they lost is because CD Lamb had so many drops. Also, Jake Ferguson had one too. But yeah, the Cowboys, they looked pretty solid against the Eagles. And while they didn't win, they're facing a much inferior Giants who just looked like they didn't have it at all against the Commanders. Russell Wilson hasn't looked great. He hasn't impressed. Not a lot of pieces on that team look that inspiring right now. And I'm pretty sure I saw something about how the Giants coach DeBall went up to ownership to start Dart and declined. So there's some weird things going on behind the scenes. It looks like Jackson Dart will become the starter pretty soon here, especially if Russell Wilson doesn't have a great game. But yeah, the Cowboys should win this one, and I don't think it's going to be particularly close. I think this game could be over double digit points in difference in the Cowboys' favor. But yeah, the Cowboys look solid. I think that they just had a really rough week 1 win. I mean, sorry, they had a really rough week 1 loss against the Eagles. But yeah, I think they're going to be 1-1 now, and they should be a threat for the playoffs for the rest of the year, honestly, if Dak stays healthy. Next up, we got Ethan's Bears versus the Detroit Lions. What are we thinking about this one?
So I think this will be a relatively close game. Both teams started 0-1 last night, having the Bears blow the lead against the Vikings to JJ McCarthy, and then the Lions only scoring 13 against the Packers. But the Packers have a really great defense, especially with the addition of Micah Parsons. And the Vikings also have a really great secondary. So I'm thinking that I'm going to take the Lions on this one, only because they are home. But I do think this is going to be a back and forth battle between both. Having Jared Goff put the same numbers up pretty much as as Caleb Williams, Laporta, and Amon Ra, and then you got Odunze and DJ Moore. So I think this is going to be a very close game, but I'm going to take the Lions on this one.
Yeah, have to agree on that one. But the Bears have looked so much better than they did last year, even in a loss in the Vikings. Yeah, they blew the game, but Caleb Williams looked a little bit more comfortable out there, and he's only gonna get better learning in Ben Johnson's new system for him. The Lions looked really rough last week against the Packers. That defense has definitely improved with the additions of Parsons, but this is still the Detroit Lions. They're gonna be growing pains with all the new coordinators. But it's just hard not to take Jared Goff, Jameer Gibbs, Amon Ra. There's weapons on weapons. This team is still good. Um, but yeah, the Bears definitely proved that they're going to be a thorn in the sides of NFL, all the other teams, and that they will be able to get wins against great teams. You saw it against the Vikings. They didn't win, but they had the lead for majority of the game, and I think they're going to clean up some things. This will be a close game, but I definitely do have the Lions here. Um, I think the Lions are gonna bounce back here. They'll take a win over the Bears. It'll be a unfortunate 0-2 start for the Bears, but you're definitely gonna notice the improvement, like we saw last week against the Vikings. All right. Next up, we got the LA Rams taking on Cam Ward's Tennessee Titans. What are we thinking about this one?
I'm thinking this is going to be not even a close game. I think the Rams beat the Titans. I mean, Cam Ward out there, they couldn't score a touchdown, but they look like they ever since they lost Derrick Henry, they have not been the same Titans, and it speaks for itself. Tony Pollard having the most yards of 60 yards and not scoring a touchdown. They did get an interception against Bo Nix, which is actually kind of hard to do, but you're losing 20-12 against them, and then compare it to the Rams, who only won 14-9, but they had Puka Nacua put up 130 yards, and Matthew Stafford put up over 225 passing yards. I think this is going to be a clean cut LA win.
Yeah, I have to agree. I remember last week, all three of us, including Ethan, we all picked the Rams to lose that game, which I was a little surprised about, and the Rams end up winning. And this Rams team is really strong. They showed it. It wasn't as dominant as a win or exciting. They didn't put up a bunch of points, but you saw, like you said, with Puka Nakua's 130 yards. Stafford looking good, which is really important news because there was a lot of concerns about his injury. But yeah, the Rams looked pretty solid, and it's week one. They just have every I've said this for every team, but it's just a test. It's just a warm up right now. The teams on week one are not the same at the end of the year. So I think the Rams are going to heat up a little bit more. But you said this would be a more of a blowout. I personally don't see it because that Titans defense is actually pretty strong. You saw it against the Broncos, who have a solid offense, um, with all the weapons that they have. And the Titans are just a team that I really don't see getting blown out a lot. I think they're not gonna win a lot of games, but they're gonna make every game close. And yeah, you saw flashes of why Cam Ward was such a highly touted prospect. Obviously, the first overall. The Titans had Cam Ward had some good looking throws in there. A lot of drops, which was unfortunate for him. I saw his dad stressing out in the stands. Yeah, their defense is pretty strong out there with L'Jarius Sneed and all the other pieces they have. But I think it won't be enough for the Rams. Poor Cam Ward has to face another strong defense already, but that's the NFL, buddy. So I do have the Rams winning, probably only by a touchdown. I think it's going to be really similar to the Broncos game. But next up, we have a pretty interesting matchup between the New England Patriots and the Miami Dolphins. Let's hear your thoughts about it.
So both teams played interestingly last week. The Dolphins losing 33-8, and then the Dolphins losing 33-8, and the Patriots losing 20-13 to the Raiders. I think both these teams are going to bounce back next week. But give me the Patriots next week. Drake May looked amazing out there. Same thing with Bournette. and whatnot. Diggs looked a little shaky, and their defense came out to play. But but if you lose to Daniel Jones and the Colts, you let Jonathan Taylor run all over you. You can't win. Give me the Patriots over the Dolphins.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Yahoo odds, which is 65% of the fans are voting for the Dolphins, and I have no idea how you picked the Dolphins after how they looked last week against the Colts. Um, I think I did mention on in last week's podcast that I do think the Colts are a little bit better than people think, and that definitely showed last week. But and while I do think the Colts are a better team than expected, this Dolphins team just looked flat out awful. There's flaws on every side of the football. Their offense was not good at all. Their defense let up all those points to Daniel Jones. Say what you want about that. That's just not impressive. I just cannot pick the Dolphins over that. I think that they're gonna improve. How much? Probably not a lot. I think they're in contention for a top 5 pick in next year's draft. But yeah, this Dolphins team has just looked awful, and Mike McDaniel's seat was already hot, but it is burning right now, and we could honestly see him gone by like week 3, week 4, especially if this is another bad loss. And I think the Patriots are pretty solid too. The Raiders are a pretty good team this year, and they did lose. However, I think there's reason to believe that they will take a step up. Drake May is still growing, especially in a new system with Mike Vrabel. They do have their weapons. Their defense is still pretty solid. I don't want to say it's going to be a blowout because I don't know how explosive the Patriots are, but I think the Patriots will look good all game and they'll look better than the Dolphins. I'm definitely taking the Patriots over Miami here. All right, next up, we got the 49ers versus the Saints. Two gold teams. What do we think?
So I'm thinking it's going to be the 49ers take this one. The 49ers won 17-13 against the Seahawks, and Brock Purdy looked amazing. Pearsall, McCaffrey, they were all over the place. Their defense came out to play. The Saints, Spencer Rattler, as much as we said about him being questioned, I think he did decent for his start, throwing 214 yards, 27 for 46, which is pretty average. So it's not bad, but their offense looked like it was shut down, and their defense looked amazing. So I think it's going to be a close game, but I do think that if McCaffrey can get past the defensive line, I think that it's going to be hard to stop him. So give me the 49ers on this one.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with that, of course. It's hard to pick the Saints, although they didn't look horrible against the Cardinals, but they didn't give a lot of anything to be desired. And yeah, the 49ers, they did get the win over my Seahawks, unfortunately. There have been reports about Brock Purdy's availability. They're saying that he has, I think, a toe injury. If it's not Purdy, it's going to be Mac Jones out there. And I don't think that changes the fact that the 49ers will get the win. Already, they're getting a lot of injuries as Jawan Jennings got hurt. George Kittle is now out for multiple weeks. But you saw that they were able, with the other pieces that they had, were able to make an impact. Um, it was not fun as a Hawks fan seeing Tonjes be the hero of the game for the 49ers, and he's going to be probably their primary tight end as Kittle is hurt. And you saw Ricky Pearsall definitely take a strong lead over all the other receivers besides Tonjes. He was able to step in over the injured Jennings. And yeah, I think this 49ers team, they have solid depth right now. Um, I think if it was against someone else other than the Saints, I think there'll be more of an issue right now, but I don't think the Saints are strong enough to take over the depleted Niners. And yeah, that defense of the Niners looked very, very strong against the Seahawks. Not a lot Sam Darnold could do out there for most of the game. But yeah, definitely gonna keep with the Niners here. Which takes us to the Buffalo Bills taking on the New York Jets. This might be a good game here. What do we think?
So both teams had incredible first week. Bills came back down 40-25 versus the Ravens on Sunday Night Football, and the Jets went back and forth with the Steelers, losing 34-32. I think this is probably going to be one of your closest games you see, but give me the Bills. I mean, they put up 41 points. They look like more of a team out there. Aaron Rodgers, 244 yards, and DK, sorry, my bad, wrong team. The Jets had Justin Fields out there running a lot. Brees Hall looked great out there. And same thing with Garrett Wilson. He looked amazing out there. But the Bills, he had over almost 400 passing yards, and almost two receivers. Coleman and Shakir had almost 75 plus. So, and you can't really top that. But and plus, they're in MetLife, and Josh Allen always plays good at MetLife. So I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills on this one.
Yeah, what a Sunday night football game that was. That was pure cinema. I really thought it was over too. When I saw the Ravens took a 40-25 lead, and it hurts for me because I have my opponent had Josh Allen in fantasy, and it was a close matchup, and
Oof.
Josh Allen just completely took over, and I lost by like over 10 points. But yeah, if you go back to last week's podcast, I said that this was obviously going to be the game of the week, and I did say that I could see both teams putting up 40 points, and that's exactly what they did. I did take the Ravens last week, but obviously that's not how it turned out. But yeah, the Bills, I mean, what more can you say about this team? Josh Allen is looking like the MVP again. Honestly, that was just a insane performance by him. And yeah, this Bills team, I mean, like I said last week, like everyone's been saying, them and the Ravens are the team to beat in the AFC. And yeah, this team is just this team is just a freight train. They're gonna keep on just pushing through opponents, even when you think they're out. They're still gonna make a way. Um, and this is not a the Jets are not anywhere close to the tier of the Ravens, which is why I'm gonna take the Bills here to handily beat the Jets. But I'm not gonna diss on the Jets too much because I think they looked really solid against the Steelers. Justin Fields really looked comfortable out there. He looked calm and collected. You saw his rushing ability. You saw him pass the ball pretty well. And yeah, this Jets team I think it's they're taking a step up this year. I really liked what I saw against the Pittsburgh Steelers out there. But it's not going to be enough to beat the Bills right now. But watch out for those Jets. Probably not a playoff team, but they're going to be fine this year, and I think that they're going to win some upset games in the future. Next up, we got a pretty interesting matchup here between my Seattle Seahawks and the Aaron Rodgers led Steelers. What do we think about this game?
Well, unfortunately, I have to take the Steelers over your Seahawks here. I mean, the Steelers again, their defense looked a little iffy last week. Other than TJ Watt, it looked a little iffy against the Jets. But minus that, you had Aaron Rodgers threw for 244 yards, looking back to the way he was before the Jets. You have Warren was looking iffy, but DK Metcalf, Austin, they were looking amazing compared to the Seahawks. I mean, Sam Darnold put up only 150 yards. He's and whatnot, and Najigba had 124 yards, which is actually not bad at all. But to have pretty much as many yards as the entire team combined on offense is a little worrisome to me. So I honestly think I'm taking the Steelers on this one, especially because of their defense. They're gonna have to have a bounce back.
Yeah, I would love to pick the Seahawks here, but I think this is going to be a Steelers victory, unfortunately. There were some highs, there were some lows of that game for the Seahawks. Sam Darnold didn't look the best out there against San Francisco. Like you said, he had 150 passing yards, which JSN had a whopping 124 or 5 of them. So there looks like he's not really looking at anyone else besides Jason. And Jason is a dog, so I don't blame him for throwing him to only, but that concerns me about like what he's seeing out there. Wondering if Cooper Cup, Torrey Horton, our tight ends have to make a step up. Um we saw Zach Charbonnet kind of take over the backfield for them as Kenneth Walker was kind of put a little bit to the side. I think I heard a little bit that they're trying to ease him back in because he had some injuries. As a canine fantasy owner, I'm kind of hoping that's the way it is. I hope he goes off because he's a talented running back. Seahawks defense looked pretty solid for the most part. We did get 2 interceptions off Brock Purdy, but I mean, I think this offense, like I said last week, that's going to be our concern right now. It looks like there's some growing pains between Sam Darnold entering back into a Clint Kubiak run offense and the Steelers. Aaron Rodgers looked vintage out there, putting up 4 touchdowns, slinging the ball pretty well against his old team, the Jets. And yeah, it was a Steelers win last week, as textbook as it gets. The Jets had a multiple possession lead, I think in the end of the third or maybe even the start of the fourth, and the Steelers just stay in the game. They don't back down. They claw in, and then they get some crazy play to get them the lead, which in this case was that 60-yarder field goal by Chris Boswell. And that defense is strong. You saw it. Well, they did give up a lot of points to the Jets. There's definitely some talent out there. You saw Jalen Ramsey come up clutch at the end there. They're gonna do what they need to do. I think this Steelers and Hawks game is gonna be a lot like the Seahawks game they had last week against the Niners. It's gonna be a lower scoring game I see this week as Aaron Rodgers is gonna face a pretty talented Hawks defense. But yeah, as much as it pains me to say this, I'm taking Pittsburgh over the Seahawks here. Which leads us to the last 10 a.m. slate game between the Cleveland Browns versus the Baltimore Ravens. How we think about this one?
I think this is going to be a good game. You have Joe Flacco coming out, throwing 290 yards with the Browns offense, which is actually pretty impressive. Jerry Jeudy, Hannon Jr., Sampson, and Tillman all had over 50 yards, which was a great way to use all your weapons there. But looking at the Ravens against the Bills, yeah, they blew a 40 to 25 lead, but 209 yards by Lamar total. You have Derrick Henry rushing for 169 yards and Zay Flowers with 143 receiving yards. He's using all his weapons and it's all over the place. And the Bills defense is actually pretty good. So putting up hanging 40 on their defense, was actually kind of surprised with. So give me the Ravens on this one, especially because they are home. So give me them over the Browns.
Yep. The Browns, like I said last week, it was going to be closer game against the Bengals, and it was the definition of close as they only lost by 1 point. Yeah, Joe Flacco did what he had to do out there last week. The Browns took a talented Bengals team. They only lost by one. However, this is the Baltimore Ravens we're talking about. They're the best 0-1 team ever, I feel like. And yeah, you cannot ignore that they put up 40 points against the Bills and they were dominating throughout the course of the game. And I will say this, as it's becoming a kind of a worrisome trend of John Harbaugh and the Ravens blowing these games. And that's what's holding them back, I think, but for a Super Bowl, even a Super Bowl appearance because they haven't appeared in a while. But yeah, but this is the Browns. I don't think they're gonna worry about a choke job here. Imagine I jinxed that. That'd be crazy. But yeah, Lamar Jackson looked very, very good too. As much as Josh Allen looked great, Lamar Jackson also looked amazing out there. You saw King Henry just dominate for most of the game until that fumble. This team is great. Zay Flowers was insane too. So this team is just even though they're 0-1, this team is still among the best in football. And I think with the Browns presented here, they're gonna get that win, be 1-1, and just keep on fighting. But yeah, this is obviously a super talented Ravens team, and I think they'll probably win by multiple possessions here, even as a divisional game. We got a pretty cool matchup between the Broncos and the Colts beginning the 1 o'clock slate. So what are we thinking about this one?
Well, although the Colts did have a stellar first game, I have to ride or die with my Broncos here. I mean, Bo Nix looked pretty good out there, throwing for 176 yards against this Titans defense. Harvey had 70 yards, so they had rushing split between Dobbins, the RBBC between Dobbins and Harvey. And then he used all his weapons with Sutton, Franklin, Ingram, and Mims all together. Um, but even though I have them winning, Daniel Jones going from the Giants to the not starting with the Vikings and then going to Indianapolis. He's looking like Tom Brady out there just in that one game. It could have just been a fluke. I want to see it next week happen. Once I see it twice or three times, then I can start believing. But I mean, Jonathan Taylor, 71 yards, Pittman and Warren, 80 and 76 yards. So Daniel Jones looked really well out there. I need to see more out of this Colts team and to make sure it's not a fluke. So I'm going to take the Broncos for this one, but I would not be surprised to see the Colts win this one at all.
Yeah. Previously mentioned about both teams. The Broncos didn't look as good as many thought against the Titans, while the Colts, the Colts had that huge win over the Dolphins, and like I said, I think they are a lot better than a lot of people realized. Daniel Jones, like you said, looked really good out there. He was one of the best performing quarterbacks of the week. And while I don't see that trend continuing because it's Daniel Jones, um, Shane Steichen is a pretty good offensive mind, and people don't remember that. Um, and he utilized all the weapons while Pittman. I honestly forgot about Michael Pittman. No diss to you, but you put up a great performance out there. Tyler Warren was really good, and that's a nice tight end piece for them. So the Colts who have weapons, their defense is solid. They're looking a lot better than people realize, and I don't think they're the worst team in that division. Not anywhere near that. And the Broncos, they struggle against the Titans team, but that is a tough Titans team, and I think they'll heat up. They didn't start hot last year. You didn't really see the Broncos take that huge step up towards the until it was the end of the season. But yeah, I'm still gonna go with the Broncos here because of all the talent they have. I think Bo Nix will bounce back from a kind of a rougher week one for him. And yeah, the Colts, I think they're gonna still put some pressure on. Um, but I think this will be a much more competitive game. They're not the I I think this will be a much more competitive game for the Colts, and I do see them end up losing this game. So yeah, give me the Broncos for this one. Next up, we got the Carolina Panthers taking on the Arizona Cardinals. What are your thoughts?
I see the Arizona Cardinals blowing out the um, Panthers. I mean, the Panthers looked absolutely, in my opinion, horrendous. I mean, Chuba Hubbard, 57 yards, and McMillan, 68 yards as the most. I mean, they had Bryce Young, 2 interceptions against this Jaguars defense, which is okay. It's not great. It's not bad. But and then only having 1 touchdown to Chuba Hubbard, which is to be expected. But the Cardinals also looking a little shaky out there too. But they still were a lot better. 21 for 29, 163 yards, and 2 touchdowns with no interceptions for Murray. 69 rush yards for Benson, and then 71 and 61 yards for Harrison and McBride. I think that Arizona has the team on paper, has the team in person, and they're at home. I'm taking Arizona over the Panthers.
Yep, I agree with that too. The Panthers did not look good at all against the Jaguars. Um, their defense didn't do particularly amazing other than that pretty sick JC Horn interception. That was pretty good. Yeah, my huge concern with the Panthers was just lack of receiving options with the departure of Adam Thielen, and it showed. Bryce Young only had 154 yards against a not a extremely talented Jaguars defense. Bryce Young, majority of it went to Tet McMillan, who is a very good player, but the lack of other options was definitely apparent there. As yeah, it was a struggle for him. He threw 2 picks. He took a step back from how we saw him end the year last year. And this Cardinals team, I think he's a little bit better defensively, with guys like Josh Sweat, and then their second round pick from last year, Will Johnson. Um, yeah, this Cardinals team is pretty solid. They took care of business against the Saints, and I don't see them losing again. Lucky Cardinals facing two crappier NFC South teams here, and they're going to begin the year 2-0. I think the Cardinals will win by probably more than a touchdown here. I think that will be the score. But yeah, concerns me for the Panthers as with Thielen leaving, that was one of Bryce Young's favorite guys. It's going to be a little bit harder for the Panthers to put up points here, and it showed. And now we got a Super Bowl rematch in week 2. We got the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. Who's going to win this one?
So I actually have this being a really close game here. The Eagles won against the Cowboys, and then on in Friday in Brazil, the Chiefs lost to the comeback kids in Justin Herbert and the Chargers. But Jalen Hurts looked a little shaky out there. Rushing, he looked amazing, but passing looked a little iffy. Their rush game looked amazing out there. Their defense held up a lot of plays. Um, but I'm a little worried about their pass game right now. However, on the flip side for the Chiefs, their passing game absolutely amazing. Their rush game needs a little bit of help. So for me, the Eagles have a great defense. Chiefs have a great defense. I think it's going to be a close game, and being that it's an Arrowhead, I do have a feeling that Kansas City has a slight advancement here, but I'm gonna take the Eagles on this one. You got Saquon Barkley behind. You got AJ Brown if you can find him, and everything else. So give me the Eagles. But I think this is gonna be a really good game, especially for a matchup of the Super Bowl.
I really thought you were about to go with the Chiefs there, which it wouldn't be a bad pick, obviously. This is gonna be a close game. It's definitely not gonna be the blowout we saw in the last year's Super Bowl. Um, let's start with the Chiefs. Obviously they kind of had the upset loss against the Chargers, who I think are a very talented team, so it wasn't really much of an upset anyways. But yeah, the Chiefs are still the Chiefs. They still look good. It's gonna be a little bit different with no Xavier Worthy, but Hollywood Brown kind of like stepped up as a wide receiver one right now, especially if no Rasheed Rice either. Kelsey, he's not gonna be the dominant tight end as he used to be, but he's still gonna be out there. And you gotta think that even with the Chargers scoring 30 points, it still came down to the wire as the Chiefs were still right behind. And you saw that if the Chiefs forced a 4 and out there, that they would have had a chance to tie the game, even with the Chargers scoring 30, which I think is crazy. And yeah, Patrick Mahomes is still there, and he had a great week last week against the Chargers. And you never know if Mahomes, you saw that crazy play where he was like getting sacked, he was like falling down to the ground, just flicks it over, and he gets an open receiver. So that was pretty cool. You gotta count for Mahomes always, but the Eagles again, like we said earlier, they looked pretty good on that opening Thursday night football. Their defense looks pretty strong still, and yeah, their offense didn't look as strong as it used to. With the new coordinator, I don't think that's much of an issue. I think they'll keep back right. They'll heat back up to form again pretty soon. This is going to be a closer game than last year's Super Bowl, of course. I will take the Eagles here as I still think that they're the better team. But this could go into the 20s or 30s per team. And I think this will be very close. This score will be within a field goal or a touchdown. This will be a close game. Next up, we got the Sunday night football matchup between the Atlanta Falcons and the Minnesota Vikings. This will be a good game. What are we thinking, Derek?
So for me, the Sunday night football game here, I'm taking the Vikings for this one. The Vikings did really well coming back against the Bears, JJ McCarthy and Justin Jefferson, and the Falcons. Um, they did really well as well. I mean, they could have done a lot better, but in my opinion, the Falcons lost 23-20 to the Bucks, which tends to be a close game all the time anyway. Um, but Of course, the Atlanta Falcons have that choking hazard in them, but Penix out there, 298 yards, and Bijan with 100 yards receiving and 24 yards rushing. I mean, that looks amazing out there. But the rest of Kyle Pitts, I said it was they were going to win with Kyle Pitts having a bounce back. He looked a lot better, but he still needs some room for improvement. But other than that, I mean, I'm not high on the Falcons this year, so give me the Vikings for this game.
Yeah, that was a pretty cool Monday Night Football game. You saw that JJ McCarthy and the Vikings start off slow, and then they obviously heated up, came from behind, and took the win over the Bears. But I do think the Vikings are a great team and all, but I'm feeling the upset here. I'm feeling the Atlanta Falcons here. Um, the Falcons played a very competitive game against a what I see a top tier Buccaneers team. Michael Penix looked really strong out there. He had a rushing touchdown. He had a wasn't really a passing touchdown because he kind of just did a short throw to Bijan. He took it to the house. But yeah, this Falcons team looked really good against the Buccaneers. It was down to the wire there as the Buccaneers were barely able to pull out a win there. But yeah, I think Penix has looked great in this week one, and I think it's going to continue. The Vikings have a pretty solid defense, but you saw Caleb Williams out there, and the Bears were able to put over 20 points against them. And yeah, I probably do think the Vikings are a better team on paper, but I'm just feeling like the Falcons. They looked so good against the Bucks, and I think that trend will continue, and I think that they will get an upset here over the Minnesota Vikings. I think that JJ McCarthy, you'll see more first half JJ McCarthy other than the second half against the Falcons here. The Falcons have some good pieces on defense too. So, yeah, I'm going to go with the Falcons over the Vikings. It's going to be by a field goal. Could be a game-winning field goal or a game-winning touchdown by Penix. That'll be cool. People are saying that Michael Penix is the greatest quarterback of all time in the last 2 minutes of a game, which there's a lot of clips of him just making these clutch drives. You saw it at Washington too. He's very clutch. So yeah, Atlanta Falcons beating the Vikings. Let's go. All right, now we have a Monday night football doubleheader with the first game being the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on the Houston Texans. What are your thoughts on this first game of the Monday night?
I think this is going to be a really close game. I mean, the Texans, although losing, are still the Texans. I mean, they got Nick Chubb, CJ Stroud, they got Schultz, Collins, Pierce. I mean, they have a bunch of weapons they can use. And although they looked a little shaky against the Rams, not scoring a single touchdown and only going for field goals, I do think that they still have a chance against the Buccaneers. But the Buccaneers looked also a little shaky out there. Baker Mayfield, one of the best known passing quarterbacks today, only passed for about 167 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, 17 for 32. Bucky Irving was behind by 2 rush yards by Baker, and then uh, Ibuka had about 67 receiving yards, and Mike Evans had 51. So having their their star running back and star wide receiver, behind backups, I do feel a little worried about that, and their defense looked a little shaky. But give me the Buccaneers. I think this is going to be a very close game. But the Buccaneers tend to come out on top, and being in Houston, I think it's going to be a very close game. So give me the Bucks for the first Monday Night Football game.
Yeah, I love the Buccaneers, as I said last week, and I think that they'll get the win here as well. The Texans did not look really good at all against the Rams. Um, the Texans have a really strong defense, and that shows they held the Rams only to 14 points. But that offense of the Texans really kind of worried me out there. Stroud didn't pass for a single touchdown, as all their points were from field goals. Um, he didn't eclipse 200 yards. He threw a pick out there. And then looking at the receivers, their leading receiver had 32 yards. So there's a lack of a true threat out there I know they have Nico Collins, and he didn't look great in his first game. I think he will take a step up because Nico Collins is one of the most talented receivers in the league. But yeah, this offense doesn't really look that strong right now, and I'm hoping that it changes because this Texans team has strong potential, but we haven't seen CJ Stroud look as good as he did in his rookie year yet. And the Buccaneers on their side, they had a pretty solid game against the Falcons. It's a divisional matchup, so it was bound to be close. And the emergence of Amika Egbuka was really impressive to see, especially that Chris Godwin didn't play, and then Jalen McMillan sidelined until like week 10. Egbuka has made a huge step up, and I see him definitely continuing to be a threat in that Buccaneers offense. You saw Bucky Irving get used. You see Baker Mayfield making these plays. Um, so yeah, the Buccaneers, they looked fine. They looked solid against the Falcons. And I think that continues. They're gonna keep on moving, keep on winning. And this Texans team, they're gonna start off with a rough 0-2, which sucks for them, especially with the division looking a little bit better than what people thought with the Colts and the Jaguars getting week 1 victories. So, yeah, it's going to be a rough 0-2 start for the Texans, and they will need to lock in again for them. All right, now the last game of the week, Monday Night Football, second game of the doubleheader, Los Angeles Chargers, Las Vegas Raiders. Good game, what we think.
I'm actually gonna go with the upset pick of the Raiders on this one.
Ooh.
Um, the Ra- the Raiders looked amazing out there. They had Geno 362 pass yards. Their rushing looked a little iffy, with Genti having 19 carries for 38 yards and a touchdown. I mean, that does scare me a little bit, but their passing, oh my God, Brock Bowers, Tucker, Myers, Thornton Jr., they had at least 50 yards each, and Bowers having 100. And I mean, as much as both teams won, and the Chargers having a what you say is a quote unquote upset win. I mean, it's the Chiefs. They're always good, but other than Herbert, he had 318 yards. Their passing looked really good, especially to Johnston and McConkey and Allen. But for me, it worries me that both teams' rushing was a little iffy. But I have a feeling that the Chargers' defense and the Raiders' defense still are a little iffy. So I think this is going to be a very high-scoring game. But give me the Raiders on this one.
Ooh. I like it. What's your score prediction? Like, I want to hear like an exact score prediction.
For this game, I have the Raiders winning 31-21.
31-21. You see, it's by 10 points, multiple possessions.
I think so.
Wow. I mean, that is a crazy take. I mean, maybe it could happen. Geno Smith looked really good in the Raiders. Huge shocker. Geno Smith is a great quarterback, and it showed. He's very accurate. He's a baller out there. He's throwing dimes all over the field. He throws for a lot of yards usually, and he looked pretty comfortable in this Raiders offense led by his former guy, Pete Carroll. Genti, you saw flashes. He got the rushing touchdown, of course. I think he'll be, as the season goes on, he'll be more utilized. So, yeah, the Raiders played a great game against the Patriots. And then, of course, Brock Bowers is Brock Bowers. He's always going to be insane. But this Chargers team, I just really like what they're doing. They looked dominant over the Chiefs. While the Chiefs were always on the Chargers' tail, I feel like the Chargers, I mean, just watching the game, the Chargers just had something to them that just looked super dominant about them. They played really smart. Justin Herbert looked just insane out there. Um, this could be a potential Justin Herbert MVP campaign. He's not the favorite right now because I think Josh Allen and Lamar with that game alone puts them above everyone else. I mean, of course, over preseason expectations too. But yeah, Herbert looked great out there. Um, a lot of people thought they're going to run ball heavy with Najee Harris and Amari Hampton. They were kind of pushed to the side there, even in this Jim Harbaugh, who usually tends to lead a run oriented um, offense. But yeah, the receivers looked great out there. You had Lad McConkey out there. You saw Keenan Allen. He looked really rough on the Bears last year. Now back on the Chargers. He's familiar in that offense. And shout out to Quentin Johnston with 2 touchdowns. I mean, who saw that coming? Especially if the way he's been performing in the league so far. I don't know if you could tell, but I really like this Chargers team. They're really talented. Their defense is pretty strong too. And I just cannot pick them over the Raiders. I do think the Raiders are also a solid team, but this Chargers team looks top tier right now with the win over the Chiefs. Am I getting a little aggressive here? I don't think so. I think the Chargers are really that good. They are a danger to win the division. I've always said that they are the second best team in this division. And if they continue the dominance that they've been putting on, I mean, the Chiefs could very well start the year 0-2 because they're facing the Eagles. And if the Chargers get a win here, which they are favored to, this could be really huge for them. So, give me the Chargers here. And yeah. All right, now that we've done all of our picks, let's give the reins to Ethan. Let's see his picks for the week.
All right, guys. NFL Guess the Player is back. Waking up. I went to bed, and the Bears were winning. I woke up, and the Bears lost. My heart is broken. But, I'm going to still give you my picks for the week. This week, the Commanders and Packers on Thursday Night Football, and then coming off a hot game, the Packers are going to take that win over the Commanders. Jaden Daniels is going to have a good game, but it's not going to be good enough. The Giants are going to take down the Cowboys because the Cowboys don't win. Seahawks going all the way. Not to the Super Bowl, but against the Steelers at least. Rams, not going to win against the Titans. I just have the Titans closing out over that, and then the Bills are going to take on the Jets going 2-0. Dolphins over the Patriots, go Miami. Bengals over Jaguars. 49ers over the Saints. Ravens over the Browns. Bears and Lions. My heart wants to say Bears, and I will say Bears because they're going to have a redemption arc, right? Broncos, Colts. Peyton Manning matchup. I'm going to go Broncos. Panthers, Cardinals. Maybe Panthers. Cardinals. Maybe Panthers. Eagles, Chiefs, Super Bowl matchup. We're going to have to go with the Eagles. You can't pick against them. Falcons and Vikings. I'm going to have the Vikings going 2-0 to start off the season. I think they're going to just narrowly beat out the Falcons. And then the Buccaneers and the Texans, you're going to have hope in the Bucs again. And then Chargers and Raiders to finish it off on Monday Night Football. As 2 primetime games in a row for the Chargers. And I think they win this one. So that's my picks for the week. And much love. Thank you, guys.
Well, Ethan, and picking, the Packers over the Commanders, I could see it, but to say that and then saying that, the Bears over the Lions, that your heart wants to go with it, and you do. I understand you're a Bears fan, but I think there's a little bias there. Jared Goff had a great game, so I see him having a good week this week, better than the last week, but ooh.
Yeah, Ethan, you're picking the Titans again. He has the Titans in his mind starting 2-0. That's kind of funny. I like that you're rolling with the Seahawks, so hopefully you're right on that one because me and Derek both went with the Steelers. But yeah, that's gonna do it today, guys. If you made it to the end, I thank you for listening. We're having a lot of fun doing this, so please let us know any tips or any advice you give for us, any ideas of other content to post on our podcast. But yeah, thank you so much again for listening. We'll hopefully see you next week.
See you later.
Cool.